Boom. Big girls, how we doing? We are live. Peyton James, you're. What's going on, Peyton? Elijah's in here, you're. So today I just wanted to kind of come on here, spend a little time with the Dynasty people, give a little love and attention, kind of answer some questions. Today I kind of want to go over and talk some stacks with you, but just wanted to see who's all in here. Yeah, we late, Andrew. We are late. You late. The league, appreciate you hopping in, Andrew, as always. Christian knows the deal. Got to be a couple minutes late, man. Typical. Kind of curious to see, let me know in the chat, what do you guys think about stacks in Dynasty? Do you think that it's important to really prioritize that? Do you try to go, you have a quarterback like Burrow or a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, a high-end one? Do you go try to pair that with its running mate? Or is that something that you don't really think is important, especially at cost, to do? I'm kind of curious to see what people think about this. Great day to be a big girl. Liam, you are a big girl. Appreciate you. Big girls need love too, you know? Let me know what you guys think about that. Okay, here's a stack to discuss. So this one, I think Stroud's a little bit overvalued right now. But Nico's interesting because Nico, I think, is still attainable. So this would be a stack I don't really hate. I think in general for me, I'll just tell you guys this. I probably would say I don't really like to overemphasize trying to get a stack if I have a player, because it typically is going to cost more if you're trying to go buy someone. If I'm able to get it like at a discount, right? So if I was able to, I had CJ Stroud, not able to sell off of him right now, just believe that he's going to be elite this year, and I can go get Nico Collins, let's say, for somewhere around market value, a first and a second, something like that. I absolutely would do it. But I'm not going to tear up from a guy that's possibly, in the same range or similarly valued just to go get Nico, kind of go out of my way to make that stack happen. That's the way I kind of view it. All right, so we got the Marv and the Kyler stack. This one's interesting. Let's see what we got here. Kyler, Marv. I think right now that this stack in the middle of the season is going to become one of the harder to acquire in Dynasty. Marv's already so desirable. Everybody wants him on his team. And you're looking at like this year with Kyler, I think Andrew's talked about this a lot. I think Kyler's someone that's a little devalued at the moment. And if these guys are starting to show chemistry real early, I think they're going to get closer to the conversation of a Burrow and a Chase as far as cost goes than they are probably right now. So this is probably one of my favorite stacks in Dynasty. I would say I actually ranked them. So I would put this one at third currently. Let me see here. Hold on. A. Rich and Pittman stack in Dynasty. Yeah, this one's a really good one too, Erickson. I'll get to that in a minute. What do you guys think right now as far as the stacks too? I want to talk about what you guys think is like how you would rank the most desirable stacks in Dynasty. So first, for me, still currently is Chase and Burrow. I feel like it's impossible to get out of a startup, basically, unless somehow like Chase fell to the end of the first as well as Burrow. You're kind of able to get him at the turn. But then I still have Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I feel like a lot of people are a little down on those two right now. I would put those guys second in my stack rankings. And then I'd put at third, what I put here? Yeah, Kyler and Marv. I got these guys at third. So kind of curious what you guys think here. Let me put this. I have that at fourth though, Eric. So let me put these guys up here. A. Rich and Pittman. Kind of curious to hear overall people's thoughts on Anthony Richardson. This guy's I have him on 6 of my Dynasty teams. I'm thinking A. Rich to the moon this year. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy. Freak talent. We'll see what happens with the target distribution this year with a guy like Adonai Mitchell possibly earning more than Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce was basically running on the outside, getting no love at all from Gardner Minshew. So, but Pittman last year, 150 targets. That's towards the top of the NFL. And if you're telling me this offense is going to take a step forward, this is definitely the fourth stack for me. Just sliding in right in front of Tua and Tyreek Hill. Tyreek obviously still great, but getting a little bit older. And Tua, I think, is a really nice really nice quarterback, but I don't quite view him in that elite top 10, top 12 in Dynasty right now. What do we got here? Andrew's out here yapping. Hold on, let's see. In just one league, I'm rocking the Super. Oh yeah, I saw he just made this trade. He was telling Nick and I about. He makes a trade basically daily and lets us know what it is. So he got the Lions super stack. Let's see what he got. Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Laporta. That one's interesting because you have so much of your team's scoring is going to be wrapped up in the Lions. Basically, it's feast or famine probably with them for the majority of your team. Purdy and Ayuk. Okay, listen, I'm not putting them on the screen, and I'm not going to talk about this because Andrew's kind of documented surviving BDGE. Last time, you can go check this out on the redraft channel, by the way. Last time I was there and I was even beginning to talk about Purdy, I almost died. I barely left with my life. So we are not, I'm not Purdy in Ayuk stack, man. That's for somebody else. Andrew and Nick will let you know what they think. Okay. All right, so here we go. Who should go 101 in a Dynasty Superflex League? Here's what I would say. I mean, to me, it's still probably Josh Allen. I'm a little worried about the weapons, frankly. I just feel like his floor is so high that I would make the case for Josh Allen. I wouldn't get too cute. It's either him or Mahomes, though. I don't really have anyone else in that tier. I kind of have them a little bit aside from the rest of the pack. I would say shortly after them, 103, 104 for me anyway is going to be Jalen Hurts at 103 and then at 104 Lamar. But I just think it's either Josh Allen or Mahomes. Not really much of a debate. For me, I would still be hitting the button on Josh Allen currently at 101. I love Mahomes, but we just kind of see that his seasons can kind of be up and down based on his passing volume and his weapons. So we kind of hope that Xavier Worthy can step in and take a step forward for this offense. But Josh Allen, 15 rushing touchdowns on the ground. He just has such a safe floor, plus an elite upside ceiling, in my opinion. The only concern for me is really what is it going to look like without Diggs. Someone put here in the stacks, by the way, I saw. Let me put this on the screen. Somebody said something about Kincaid and Allen as one of their stacks. Kyler McBride stack is going to go crazy this year. I think so. I'm kind of curious to see how much target volume he's going to be able to keep with a guy like Marv coming in there. But it could end up meaning more efficiency for Trey McBride. I love Trey McBride. I'm actually in the Scott Fishbowl right now, and I was really hoping to get McBride in the third round, and I got sniped. One fucking pick in front of me. Sucks. All right, so Goff and Amon-Ra is a really good stack too, by the way. Do you have this as your first one, Jake? I saw your comment in here. Kind of curious how high you have them up. All right, thoughts on tearing down from Allen. Have been offered Burrow, St. Brown, and a second for Allen and Pickens. Okay, so you're going to go from Josh Allen to Joe Burrow, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and a second for Allen and Pickens. I think I'd probably do this. Like, I like Pickens, but Amon-Ra St. Brown to me is in the elite tier. I still have Burrow as probably like a top, 6 to 8 option for sure at QB. I think I would take the Burrow and the St. Brown, the Burrow and the St. Brown. Plus, you get the second there. I mean, if this offer's still out there and you think that you can get this done, when you're getting off of a guy like that's quite so highly valued as Josh Allen, basically these are the type of players you can kind of ask the moon for, or I'd probably just kind of counter back or hit him in DMs with like a light offer, basically saying, can you make the second, a player of higher consequence for you, or a first. Can I get a first and I'll send you back a second round pick, something like that. See if you can squeeze a little more out of the person. But James, I think I'm taking this offer. What do you guys think in the chat? Would you rather have Joe Burrow and Amon-Ra St. Brown or Josh Allen and Pickens? I think the biggest thing for me is that Pickens, I like him, and I think the offense is going to be better than we think, but I do think it's going to be probably a little bit lower pass volume. I just don't know if Pickens, even if he has a good season this year, gets like really into even the tier below Amon-Ra St. Brown. I feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown for me right now is like just as highly valued as realistically like CD and all those guys. So I have him a significantly higher than Pickens. So I think that part is more important for me than Allen versus Burrow. So especially when I'm down tiering from Allen, this is another thing I'll say about this. If I can stay in the elite quarterback range, that is like the optimal tear down. Sometimes if you're going from, let's say Josh Allen to Tua or Goff or down further than that, that's a little bit more iffy for me unless I'm getting something serious back. I think I would just make this trade though. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah, Burrow and Amon-Ra St. Brown, which y'all. All right, I think I'd take, you guys are all saying the same. Okay. All right, so I've considered sending Bryce plus 2 firsts for Kyler to be my second QB in Superflex. So ambiguity. Give me some context. I know you like to be ambiguous, but I want to know context of this. Like, is this a lineup start 9 Superflex league? How many starters do we have? This is a hefty price to pay. Like, where do these first like realistically look to project for your team? Are they your own first? Like, how good is the rest of your team? I basically have to know a few things before I would actually send this offer in, because it's pretty expensive. But if it was like a shallow format, like start 9, let's say, and your team is really, really loaded, you have, plenty of depth as well as a lot of like really high quarterbacks. Like this is Kyler plus Burrow or Kyler plus A-Rich, something like that. I'd be willing to do it, but that's a pretty steep price. Otherwise, I'm probably going to be on the opposite side. What up, Theo? What's going on? Appreciate it, Hickey, son. All right. Like that. Yeah, so actually, Andrew, this is a good one. I was going to discuss this a little bit. So, again, with stacks, if I'm going to acquire them, like it's kind of like I'll lean a stack in a tiebreaker. So, let's say there's a trade out there. I currently have Jared Goff, and I'm going to acquire Amon-Ra St. Brown, theoretically, right? If the trade was close enough to me where I wasn't sure, like I'm really on the fence, I'd probably go ahead and make it knowing I'm acquiring the stack, basically as a tiebreaker. One of the things, though, that I do like, let's say you have Garrett Wilson and your quarterback room's a little bit light, right? You have, let's say, one high-end quarterback. You have a Kyler Murray, a Joe Burrow. Let's even say you have Jared Goff or Tua as your quarterback 1, but your quarterback 2, Superflex, is super sketchy. This is, I think, like cheap ads of Aaron Rodgers. Right now, realistically, Aaron Rodgers is probably super attainable in Dynasty. You shouldn't have to send a future first. But you're going to have to be creative. Like no one's going to probably just take a late second or, a single pick in 25 or 26 in the second or third round. So I think you can be creative and probably get the stack of Aaron Rodgers to your Garrett Wilson pretty cheaply. So that was one thing I wanted to say about stacks is that I'm for it if it makes sense. The one thing I don't want to do is probably really go out of my way to make a stack like when it's unnecessary. I just think kind of like this. You think about you're playing. This isn't a best ball format in a tournament. We're still in Dynasty playing against 10, 12 other people, and it's single elimination in the playoffs. So like you probably remember Burrow and Chase, obviously several years ago on championship week. I remember also like that stack destroyed me. I basically didn't even have to watch the 4 o'clock games, the evening games, because it was over out of the jump. But what I'll say is that if you go out of your way to make it too expensive, it's probably not going to matter. But you basically lower your floor a little bit with the stacks. But obviously, if you have a really elite stack, you can weekly win any single week. But how many times is that stack going to basically like take your team through the playoffs every single week, 3 weeks in a row? That's where I think it's not as important for me in stacks here in Dynasty, like versus in different formats like a best ball underdog tournament, something like that. All right, let's see. Best Packer to stack with J Love. Oh, is this not the question of the summer? This is the question of the summer right here. I love the talent of Jaden Reed personally, but I'm getting worried about his snap share. They basically are using him exclusively out of the slot, and until I see a reason to believe that they're going to start using him more on the outside, I feel like his ceiling is going to be capped unless he's going to be super efficient. Last year he had 10 total touchdowns through the air and on the ground. That really kind of catapulted his efficiency. Was part of the reason he was so good. Man, this is probably one of the questions I really don't feel that great about answering. Christian Watson, can he stay healthy? Romeo Doubs, like I don't think Romeo Doubs is all that talented, but he's going to be on the field so much that I think it's going to be hard for a weekly projection of, is it Romeo, is it Christian Watson, is it Jaden Reed? I think right now I still personally would lean Jaden Reed, but when I factor in cost, like I'd probably be more okay taking Romeo Doubs like 12th, 13th round currently. Best Packer to stack with Jordan Love, take cost out of it, I still think is Jaden Reed. I still think he's the most talented receiver in this receiver room. So hopefully Green Bay will start using him in more, more than just the slot usage. All right. Let's see here. If you're drafting and you think you have the potential to stack without tearing down, I would do that. I would agree with that too. All right. What do you think is a reasonable price for Marvin Harrison Jr. for a tear down? I'm looking for 2 top 20 wide receivers. Is looking for 2 top 20 wide receivers too steep of a price? No, not at all. I think you should be looking for that. Otherwise, you should be just staying with Marv. If you're not going to get if you're not in a tear down going to get, well, let's say this, if you're going to have let's say a top 10 receiver and then a top 25 receiver, even something like that. But I'm not going to go down to wide receiver 15. I'm not going to go from, let's say, let's use some names here. Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not going to tear down to Chris Olave if the plus is going to be, just Christian Watson. Like, no, I don't think I'm doing that. I'll just stay with Marvin Harrison Jr. there. So, no, I don't think it's too steep of a price. Do you have? I guess I'd say this. Do you have any people that are like really biting for or trying to acquire Marvin Harrison Jr.? And then what are some players on their teams? I'll give you some options I think that you could try to send out in trade offers specifically. But I think I don't think asking for 2 top 20 receivers is too steep at all. Yeah, Reed it's honestly, like, Eric, I don't understand it, to be honest with you. Like, he's going really high, man. So be curious to see what happens with his price. And in Dynasty, I think the one thing in Dynasty is that we can hope that he eventually gets a larger snap share from this offense. Oh, yes, let's go, man. Watson is quarterback 2 in Amari Cooper stack. Michael Lewis, you damn right. You know the Browns. I mean, if you're going to take a stack cheaply, this is probably one that you can do. I feel really good about Amari Cooper this year. Watson, I'm not quite as sold on, but you see in the background, man. Fan. So go ahead and lean into it. I think I was looking at some trades, actually, on the Lab and a few other places. Deshaun Watson's price right now in Dynasty is just crazy. Like, I saw he was traded for a 2nd and 3rd in Superflex. Like, that was it. So, I think as a cheap stack option, honestly, it's not a bad play. All bias aside, except I can't take my bias out of it. Would you move Chase to get Amon-Ra for the stack? So this is a good question. So Luke, my rule of thumb is this: like, I'm not going to make a 1-for-1 player trade where I'm staying in the same tier. So for me, I kind of view these in the same tier. If you don't have them in the same tier, I can kind of make the case for it. The other thing I would say is right now, right or wrong, it feels like Chase has a little more market value. So I feel like you're probably going to be bleeding a little bit of market value by going from Chase to Amon-Ra. Like, Amon-Ra just got paid hugely. We've seen him be elite producer for 2-3 years in a row. I just don't know if he'll ever if for some people they'll view him with the same type of upside as we got a guy like Chase, guy like Jefferson, even Marv, if he has a great season this year, could pass Amon-Ra. So this one's close. If you want to, I don't hate it. Like, they're close enough in value. I don't mind it at all, especially knowing Goff's going to be in Detroit for a while. I don't think I would go out of my way to do that. The one thing about Chase is if T moves on, let's even say he plays the rest of this year and then he moves on from this offense. Like, if Jamar Chase gets a opportunity share where he's got 170, 180 targets, like, he could end up being the wide receiver 1 in future seasons for sure. So I don't hate it, but I probably would. I think if you're getting Amon-Ra back for Chase, you could ask for something super light back. If you can get something like that done, I'd probably be a little more on board with it. Let's see here. I have Amari Cooper. Should I tear down from Goff to stack with Watson? Honestly, I think this is probably, I would say, depending on the cost, like depending on what you can get back. Goff's perceived value right now, these two have totally switched in the last year or two. It was basically that, Watson, when he's finally back after all the allegations are over and he's finally playing for the Browns, he's going to be great. But what we've seen out of him and his injuries are kind of concerning, and obviously his dynasty price is reflective of that. Goff with the new bag, playing really well. It was a great season for him last year. Like, can you get... I mean, the other thing too is if you have Dak and A. Rich, this is really your quarterback 3. So that totally changes the conversation where I absolutely would do this. I don't want to probably have a lot of value in my quarterback 3 unless I'm going to trade that straight up. Like, let's say you're going to trade Goff straight up for a positional skill player to boost your lineup. That'd be fine. But really, I want my quarterback 3 to be a viable option in case A. Rich goes down and in case Dak goes down. I don't want to hold a whole lot of excess, like a really high-valued player that I'm not going to be playing on a weekly basis in Jared Goff. So, absolutely, knowing that you have those two guys, Kyle. I think you can probably get, maybe not quite a full first. I mean, you might even be able to get a first, but you could probably get a player that's in the range of, like we did a video talking about players that are worth well more than a second, but you can't get a first back, you could probably get a player like that off of their team and Deshaun Watson in that trade. So I think I definitely would do that. All right, Erickson's back. Thoughts on running back wide receiver stacks? Puka, Kyron, Waddle, Achane. So those two in particular, like we've seen Waddle and Achane in that offense just be explosive. Same thing with Puka and Kyron. So these guys are going to be able to feast together. I don't really put any extra emphasis in it, but I will say if you have too many pieces, like if you go to Andrew's the Lions super stack, right? He's got Gibbs, he's got Laporta, he's got Amon-Ra and Goff. So if you have like too much of your offense consolidated into, too much of your team, in Dynasty is consolidated into one offense, that basically is probably going to lower your floor, but then also probably lower your ceiling. Or raise your floor, but also lower your ceiling. So essentially, like if you had Pacheco and Rashee Rice or Pacheco and Xavier Worthy, like that offense is, again, one of the more high-powered ones that probably can support two, boom players in the same week. But I would just be careful about having running backs and wide receivers on the same offense that's realistically not the highest projected scoring teams out there. Like a Najee and Pickens. They're cheap enough, but do you really want to be starting two or three Steelers every week? Those are the type of things I would be considering. Like, I don't want to have a lot of my team's value weekly into lower-powered offenses. That's probably the best way I can say that. Stack it up. Hedging your bets is for sixth placers. I mean, if you can get the stack reasonably, I have no problem with it at all. Absolutely agree. All right, I traded the 107, the 110, and a late 25 first for the 102 to get Marv. Okay. Then I traded Lawrence and Laporta for Kyler. Still got Ingram and Kincaid. That feels heavy for Kyler. I kind of like. I think Kyler is undervalued, and I'm also not the biggest fan of the. I think most formats the tight end position is overvalued. It doesn't mean as much to your team. So I kind of like that, but I'll say that it feels like you probably paid a really pretty penny, man. Like Lawrence and Laporta are going in the same range, maybe a little bit below Kyler in startups. That one's probably a little pricey. I get it, though, for sure, having Ingram and Kincaid. The 107, the 110, and a late 25 first. If you're telling me, Chuck, it's for sure a late 25 first, I'll take Marv in that trade for sure. The only thing is the 107, like if that became Rome, now it's a little different discussion. But as long as it was Rome and Malik Neighbors are off the board at 107, I like that for you. Theo says, fuck a stack. All right. Is it smart to pair other offensive weapons as well? I have Gibbs. Would it be smart to get Laporta? Yeah, so I just kind of covered that, where I think that offense is an offense where it's going to be high scoring enough and potent enough to probably support both these guys. It's really going to basically raise your floor. Probably unlikely that on multiple weeks where Gibbs and Laporta are going crazy and being like fantasy booms, but it's probably unlikely that both these guys are shut out consistently. So would it be smart? Yeah, if it's reasonable cost to acquire, I'll just tell you right now, the thing for me is not necessarily the Lions offense. Is it smart to get Laporta? I feel like Laporta right now is as peak of a dynasty price as I could imagine. So that would be my one hesitation with getting that. All right. What the fuck do I do? Well, Theo, they ain't asking too many questions because that's what we're here for. Q and assault, baby. What the fuck do I do with Deontay Johnson and Calvin Ridley and T. Higgins as my starting dynasty wide receivers, LOL? Quarterback Hurts, running back Connor, tight ends Ferg. I feel like here's the answer right now that I think you have to really think about that isn't fun to hear. Like, this is a bad time to trade any one of those players away. T. Higgins right now, the stuff surrounding him not being able to move on from the Bengals, not getting a full contract, obviously the franchise tag. He's probably a hold. Deontay, I think, is a hold right now, even though he's in an offensive situation where if Bryce is better this year and he's the true number one, he could end up being better than he was last year and the year prior with Kenny Pickett. But the price hasn't really changed. So I think you need like a player like Deontay or T. Higgins to do something on the field which gets dynasty gamers excited again. And basically then at that point, I think you might be in a position at that point to try to move on from them. Right now, I feel like they're holds. Calvin Ridley, the, he got the contract in Tennessee, but I'm going to look it up on Keep Trade Cut right now just to see. I don't feel like he also has gotten much of a bump in value. Right now, it's just everybody's wanting younger players. They want to reset the age on their dynasty team. So probably in August, and then certainly when the games start in September, I think would be a better time to move them. With Connor as your running back, Hurts, I think you probably are hoping to win now, but I don't know the rest of your team. I think you kind of have to hold at this point, Val. All right, so here we go. Casey Frank, Purdy questions again. Knock on wood. I've got Purdy, Debo, Kittle, CMC on a best ball lineup. Too much? Should I diversify or roll with them? So in best ball especially, these guys are all great options. I don't know. Is this a dynasty best ball league, Casey? But in best ball, you can essentially have guys like Kittle, which are boom or bust, and also have other players on your team, which are going to help kind of make the floor safer. So in best ball, I think is actually a great place to do this, especially with the Frisco room where we've seen literally all these guys be wide receiver, tight end, running back, quarterback one on the week. So I think I'd roll with them, Casey. I would probably not trade these guys away unless a offer was too good to be true, personally. Hi. All right. Would you try to pivot from Devontae Smith to Odunze? I would. I think right now it's probably going to cost more than you might think. If I was able to get it done for, I'd say, like in a Superflex league, I would rather probably have Odunze than Smitty in a second. Now, I know that's probably hot takey, but I feel like Devontae Smith's value is starting to kind of get pretty cemented where it's at. And I think Odunze, when we don't really know what this year is going to look like with Keenan Allen and the offense they have. But I think when Odunze eventually starts to show really promising signs, whether that's later this year or in the start of next year, I think his value in Dynasty can really take a big leap forward, and then you might be able to trade him away for a lot more. So Odunze is one of the guys in Dynasty I'm trying to get as many shares of as possible. I don't hate Smitty, though, for the record. He's just in an offense which is, A.J. Brown's there, so it's a little tougher for him. Appreciate it, Theo. I just keep answering. I just keep pulling them up, All right. I've been trying to pair Pickens and Addison for a top 6-7 receiver, but no one's really budging. I have a ridiculous amount of young receivers, but I want a stud. Any advice on what you would do? Okay. Quick review. If you could, give me the context of this. Okay, here it is. It's a 10-team league, Superflex. So in a lineup start 10 league, this would be my advice to you. Right now, like that format in general, so you're going to be starting 2 quarterbacks. You can probably start 5 receivers on a weekly basis there. So like everybody, I think right now is looking at their team. Everybody's healthy, and you can kind of project everyone to play well, whether that's going to happen or not. I think you need to wait until in the season to get like what I would be doing is probably trying to find a roster that has one of those, like you're saying, top 10, let's call it, receivers that probably is lacking some depth. And eventually, some of those teams are likely going to be dealing with some attrition throughout the year where someone gets hurt or bye weeks come around and people aren't really necessarily thinking about what the rest of their lineup looks like. I think at that point, trying to tier up is a lot easier to get done. Like right now, everybody kind of probably in this format is going to want to keep the elite receivers because they're harder to get typically. So I just think right now, like trying to get them to do that while they don't necessarily need to make a trade is also the other thing. Like right now it's July 9th. I actually did a video on this a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, where I was talking about how this is the dead period. Like right now where we have this lull after the draft, before the season starts, people kind of see their team as complete and they're not necessarily looking to make a move. So I think I would wait until, a guy like Pickens or Addison is coming off a hot week or 2 hot weeks and then see if I could kind of package up to go get one of those elite receivers. That's the way I would approach it. Quick review. Let's see. In a start 9 PPR league, would you rather have Stevenson in the 26th, 3rd, or Rashad White? I think I don't care if it's Superflex or one quarterback. That was what I was thinking about at first, but I'll take Rashad White here. The 3rd for me probably doesn't mean enough in this trade. And, like, I like Stevenson. I think we need to give The range of outcomes, some real consideration for the Patriots. Like, they may be shit again. Their offense may be terrible. They might take a little bit of a step forward. We don't really know when Drake May is going to get on the field and what it looks like. So I don't really necessarily hate Stevenson, but he's not a guy that I'm targeting. But if you told me right now that I can, for a third-round pick, move off of him, and a third-round pick and Stevenson go up to Rachaad White, I'm probably just taking the Rachaad White side. Because it's in a PPR league where Stevenson, I think we saw when he was really good, a top 12 running back. Obviously, he had a lot of pass catching work, and they just brought in Gibson. So I'm not necessarily sure how much pass catching work he's going to get with Rachaad White. Yeah, there's Bucky Irving there, but like that's his calling card. I think Rachaad White's receiving ability. So I lean that way for sure. I mean, I know people hate Rachaad White, but damn, that seems really cheap. Let me know if you guys disagree. That seems crazy cheap to be able to get Rachaad White right now. Maybe we should be buying Rachaad White. That's crazy. How do you feel about trading Caleb for Mahomes on a rebuilding team? Getting good value out of Caleb, but losing 6 years in quarterback age. Well, I would say this. What is the cost? Because one of the things that when I'm rebuilding, typically the reason I need to rebuild is like my team's ass. It's not anywhere near ready to compete. So I think more often than not when I'm rebuilding, the best thing to do is kind of multiply assets and get more shots at the dartboard. You get guys like, I mean, last year you could have landed cheaply so many players that ascended in value, and now because you had multiple shots, guys like Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice were not anywhere near the top of rookie draft. Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua. So I'm kind of looking to like I want to multiply assets and get as many shots at players that are going to increase in value as well as draft picks as possible. So typically, like if I have to consolidate a lot for Mahomes on a rebuilder, I don't want to do that because I'm basically taking away all my shots at value accrual that I can then trade away later. That's kind of where this is tough. If you told me it's like way cheaper than market and I'm basically getting off of the risk of Caleb Williams, sure, I would do it. But like this is going to come down to what it costs. And I'd say more often than not, the cost to acquire Mahomes is not worth it on a team. So that's kind of where I stand. Started Dynasty this year. Oh, no, that's a different person. Sorry. Okay. Drafted Caleb with the 2-3 and Rome with the 508. Okay, so this is in a startup. Laporta with the 403 and Goff with the 603. What do you think? I mean, those are all great spots to get those players based on where their ADP is in startups. So I love that. I think the Caleb and Rome stack is one that we haven't talked about much yet because of the presence of Keenan Allen, but I think like in a year from now, if I was to put all those people back on the screen, Caleb and Rome will absolutely be in the mix. So I like getting them early. All right, so starting wide receivers are Ayuk, Moore, and Dell in a 12-team start 10 PPR. Move any and a piece for a top wide receiver or stay. Okay, so you got like Ayuk right now. I have not been able. I'll just tell you this: I've been trying in a few places to tier up from Ayuk because, like, Keep Trade Cut will tell you he's valued like as a top 13, 15 receiver. But I feel like while that's probably the case, there's a big teardrop as far as the way he's being able to be traded right now. So I think Ayuk probably for me is more of a hold than anything. Adams, would you move any? Like if I could move Adams and Tank Dell for a top receiver in Dynasty, absolutely. I think the reality is though, the market on these guys all is a little bit iffy. People are really, I think, starting to sweat or are nervous about DJ Moore with Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen there. Adams is just old as hell. Like Adams, if you can get any value out of Adams will be the one I would love to move if that's truly someone you can get value out of. But again, right now, I think that most people don't want to buy a 32-year-old receiver who's coming off of a kind of a sketchy year. So you probably end up having to hold. I'm trying to think. I think you're probably going to have to hold because I don't think trading away like an Ayuk and an Adams is really going to get you to the elite tier. Guys like CD, Chase. So I think right now you're probably better off to hold personally than try to go chase those. Those guys just cost an arm and a fucking leg. All right, started Dynasty this year. I have A-Rich, Jacobs, Achane, Jefferson, Diggs, Pittman, Freiermuth, Aaron Jones, Hollywood, and Deshaun in my starting lineup. And that's a hell of a starting lineup. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so starting 10. Wicks and Downs on the bench. Thoughts? I mean, Finn, I'll tell you this. I like this roster a lot, but if Wicks and Downs are truly your only players on the bench worth mentioning, you're gonna need to get some depth, because like Aaron Jones, I like him. I'm kind of thinking there could be some good things to reap this year from Minnesota, but he's trending the end of his dynasty career realistically, and we don't even know if this offense is going to be viable and how much work he's going to get. Hollywood, again, he's kind of on a one-year deal with KC. Deshaun Watson and A. Rich both couldn't stay on the field last year. I think there's a lot of upside on this team, but I think maybe let me know in the comments what other pieces you have in depth. But if it's truly like Wicks and Downs and then a bunch of duds, I think you really need to seriously address some depth options on this team. How different is the Chicago wide receiver room from the Seattle wide receiver room this time last offseason? And does Odunze have a similar path to JSN to start his career? Maybe. I mean, I would say maybe. I think that Rome, like, I love JSN coming out last year, but I do actually think Rome is more talented than JSN. I also think that one of the things to consider last year, like Seattle was an offense that it was kind of really realistically middle of the pack. This year, I think Chicago, we've never seen a number one overall pick go to a team that's as ready on paper, at least, to compete as this team is. So I think that the Chicago offense, I project to be a little bit better than Seattle this year. And I also think that the chemistry that a rookie quarterback and rookie receiver being drafted in the same year can develop through OTAs, through all the stuff they're going to be doing in the offseason, is a lot different than Geno Smith, who already had a little bit of rapport with DK and with Tyler Lockett, is with JSN coming in. So I would say that, and the other massive thing to keep in mind is that Chicago took Odunze. Now, I know this doesn't necessarily translate to how they're used on the field, but the investment that Chicago has in Odunze is massive, because he was a top 10 pick this year. And not just that, they basically sat there and took him when there was teams that drafted QBs after, and teams were calling up trying to trade. So I think Odunze is in us. I wouldn't be super worried about Odunze's production in the first part of the year, as long as in the second part of the year you're starting to see him come alive. I think that Odunze is going to be really special in this offense, and I think that Chicago is more talented overall than Seattle was last year. All right, so let me star some of these questions, get you guys answered up in here. Would you do Addison and a second-round pick for JT? I already start off with Jettas and Rasheed as a 15-round pick as a rookie keeper, 10-man 3 keeper, and 1-year rookie keeper. Okay, Mason, so you get to keep 3 people, one of which is a rookie, and you're asking would you trade Addison and a second-round pick for JT? I'm trying to figure out, like, in this format, what does the second-round pick really look like? Like, what kind of players would you be getting there in this keeper format? Because I think in a keeper format, versus a dynasty format, I would be a lot more about doing this swap for JT. Probably in dynasty, I would be willing to do this. If this was just, say, in dynasty, a Superflex league, you really believed in JT, it's probably a little bit expensive, but I don't think it's crazy. So I don't really know what that second-round pick looks like in your keeper format, but I think in a keeper league, I'd be far more interested in going ahead and making that trade for Jonathan Taylor. Okay. I'm a rebuild team, 12-team, 1 quarterback. Full PPR, I have Laporta, Henry, and Dulcich. Should I try and tear down to Pitts or Kincaid and a number 2 receiver? Yeah. I mean, I personally would. Like, I won't fight anybody on Laporta being the number 1 tight end in Dynasty. But I feel like, realistically, if you can get this type of a deal done where you get a number 2 receiver, let's say it's I don't know if you're talking about a T. Higgins type here, or what the receiver looks like. But, I mean, if you can give me basically, like, shoot, I would probably consider Laporta and Kincaid for, like, Godwin. If you gave me Kincaid and Godwin for Laporta, I think I'd probably be on something like that even. So I would say yes, Jake. I think the smart move is that. Laporta, I really like him. I think he's super talented. I think the offense is going to be great. But 10 touchdowns last year. I just don't know if we're looking for some positive touchdown regression for him, or if he's going to end up being the positional difference maker and be just him. I probably would be trying to. I'd be trying to make one of those two trades if I could. All right. Quick review says other receivers are Waddle, Amari Cooper, Brian Thomas, Rashee Rice, Coleman, Dotson, and Burton. Trying to remember the question now. For the yeah. So you have plenty of depth on this team where you're trying to go get those top 6, 7 receivers. Yeah, I think obviously you have a ton of ability to do that. You have, like, you're talking about trading Pickens and Addison. I think I'd probably wait until a team that has one of those guys their lineup's looking a little iffy or shaky, and then I think I'd try to pounce and make an offer they couldn't refuse. That's probably, I think that's the more realistic way to get it done. It's just you think about it in this format. How fun is it right now to trade away Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown? Like, in this format, it's not going to be very fun to do that when no one's scoring points. I think the window to try to get this done, if it's possible, is going to be more midseason. All right, so I have Puka and want Waddle. What do you think is a reasonable trade to tear down to him? This is a good one. I think, I'll be honest with you, this is so, like, Puka's someone that you can talk about in Dynasty rankings. I think Puka is just so polarizing. The way people view him, it really comes down to the person that owns Puka. Like, I've seen a couple teams, actually, that have taken over orphans, right? So just to give you some context of why I say this. They'll take over an orphan where the team was kind of formed before they get it. And now they get their hands on it, and they're like, oh, Puka, I need to get off of Puka because I'm worried about his dynasty value. I don't necessarily think it's here to stay. Some people, though, I've seen be extremely bullish on Puka, that is either on their team or they've gone out and made some trades where they're like acquiring Puka close to probably what it costs for like an Amon-Ra St. Brown type player. So I think it really comes down to the person that you're trading with. How high and how bullish are they on Puka Nacua, frankly. I think the thing is, though, like, Puka's not realistically, for the majority of leagues are in dynasty market value, being traded or being treated like significantly higher than Waddle. He's not being treated as the elite tier. He's being treated kind of like the second or the third tier. Like, reasonable trade is probably, can you get back a second round pick? And then at that point, do you think it's worth it? I think is the reality. I just don't know that shooting for Waddle right now is going to really net you much of a plus. For a lot of people, it doesn't feel like much of a fall off between those two. I also have Tua to go with Waddle. Okay, so I got all of the ATL guys. All right, let's go, Nick. ATL, baby. Kirk Cousins, Bijan, London, and Pitts. Move Pitts for Waddle. I still have Kincaid, no tight end premium. No tight end premium, 1,000%, Rob. If there's not a tight end premium, if you can move Pitts for a receiver as proven as Waddle, like, I've kind of been on record that at cost, I'm out on Waddle. I don't have any shares. I would make this trade no tight end premium in a fucking heartbeat. Absolutely, yes. Especially in talking about stacks, he's got Tua to go with Waddle, so I'm doing it. Yep. If that trade's actually out there, Rob, I'd go get that done right now. All right, so let's see here. My boy Goose, what up? Hey. All right, let's see here. So I've been on for 45 minutes. Let's see what y'all got here still for your boy. I plan to go about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, depending on what kind of questions we got. If you guys are still want me to yap or what's out there. All right, so let's see. Still currently is in my first dynasty startup. All right, started with quarterback Josh Allen and Jared Goff. Wide receivers Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Brian Thomas Jr. Running back Swift, Spears, Kincaid at tight end. Advice: where should I go for trades? I mean, I like this. I like this team, Zach. Honestly, Josh Allen and Goff, I think, is a really nice quarterback room. I don't know what your quarterback 3 is. I typically like to have a lower dynasty value quarterback 3 that I know I could rely on in a pinch. Someone like Stafford or lower range, even if it was like Aaron Rodgers, someone like that. So I don't know if you have something like that. Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Brian Thomas. I love Garrett Wilson and A.J. Brown. Brian Thomas Jr., I don't know realistically this year if we can rely on him in my – like I wouldn't know if I can rely on him in my lineup weekly just yet. So I don't know what the rest of your wide receiver depth looks like. Swift and Spears, the way I typically build my teams, if those are my starting running backs day one, I don't have much of a problem with it. And Kincaid's a very much a plus tight end at the position top 5 in Dynasty for sure. So my advice is, like, I guess for context, Zach, what's your third quarterback? Do you have something there? And then, like, what's the rest of your receiver depth look like? Because right now I think realistically this is giving me a super flex lineup with no flex spots because you're probably starting 3 receivers and 2 running backs and a tight end. So if you can give me a little bit more context, then I'd answer some trades. But I think I definitely need to know what the rest of your receivers look like, and then do you have a quarterback 3? Those would be some things. Oh, let's see. Did he answer? Here we go. Oh no, you just repeated the question. Okay. Yeah. If you can give me some more context, Zach, I'll get you. I got you started here. Let's see what we got. All right. Cost for Mahomes is Caleb, mid-25 first, Dalton Schultz. The Dalton Schultz part, I don't really mind getting off of for Mahomes, but I'm not. The 25 class we don't project to be the greatest, and it's because the quarterbacks are, I mean, they just don't look very good. I don't even necessarily know if we're locked into having a first-round quarterback. It could be something like the Kenny Pickett year. We had one quarterback go a lot more mid-round, first round. We just don't know enough about the QBs, and we don't feel confident enough in the quarterbacks in the 25 class. But the receivers are pretty loaded still for me. So if you tell me that it's a mid-25 first here, in a rebuild, I think I have a hard time doing this, giving up a mid-25 first. Definitely if you're truly rebuilding too, I'm not giving up my own first in this trade. No chance. No problem, Professor. I got you. Peyton says, I currently have Burrow and Chase stack, still doing Dynasty Startup Draft, BDG League 33. Okay. I was offered A.J. Brown and 3 firsts next year for Chase. Should you consider that? I mean, fucking absolutely. That's crazy. 3 firsts and 25. That is some serious ammo. I think I'm doing that, man. I don't know is this super flex? Like, I don't even know that I need to know the context. If it was a 1 quarterback league and you're telling me those firsts are going to end up probably on the later side, I can maybe see the hesitation. But in super flex, 3 firsts. Like, the other thing is, I think about what I can now do. Is there an opportunity with those 3 firsts that I now can buy another really high-end receiver type player? I mean, more than likely the answer is yes. Like 3 firsts or 2 firsts and a pretty solid receiver probably get you back in the conversation with a guy like Amon-Ra. So I know you got the stack here, but this is kind of what I'm talking about, where I don't want to be not selling a player because I have the stack if it's egregious. Like, I won't just give you Chase for market value if I have a stack, but dude, A.J. Brown in 3 firsts, especially all in 1 class, is crazy. The other thing about having them in 1 class, at least the way I think about it is this. So let's say it's a 12-team league, right? And you got 3 firsts, so now you have 25%. If you have your own, you have like a third of the picks in that class. So like you have every one of those times, there's a chance that one of those teams ends up being more middling than maybe we think, or that becomes an early pick. If that's anywhere near a top, if any one of those are top 6 picks, all of a sudden, again, that's house money. So I think I'm doing that, man. Like, I love Jamar Chase. I only have 1 share. I'd like to acquire more, but this is why I'm not acquiring much of Chase, because it's criminal activity, man. 3 first, that's fucking crazy. If I'm rebuilding, do I move Bijan? Nick, so the answer to this case is yes. Nick Case, I think the case is yes. I think about running back shelf life and their dynasty value, and like Bijan actually last year, right? He didn't do that well, and everyone still really thinks he's going to do so much better this year with Arthur Smith out of town. We're looking at probably him getting, a bigger percentage of snaps and touches for the majority of the year. But like, if you think about it, let's fast forward this time next year. What is Bijan going to increase in price realistically for your rebuilding team? Like, realistically, even if he smashes, he's probably not going to be increasing a ton in dynasty price. He's also now a year older when the shelf life is shorter on that position anyway. And that whole time, you carried the risk of what happens if Bijan gets hurt and is out for the season or something like that. So I think I absolutely am. One of the hard parts is people want to try to trade Bijan away like he's a quarterback, and he's just not in Superflex. So I think I would be moving Bijan, but you can be picky and selective with the offers you're getting back. All right, 12 team. What do we got here? 12 team start 11. Okay, Kyler, Levis, May, Corum, Moss, Dowdle, Marv, Odunze, Reed, Rice, McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr. Okay, got a solid young wide receiver corps. Inbox offer of a 25 first, 104 on the simulator. Okay, 25 second, 203 on the simulator. Damn, 26 second, 25 third for my Reed. And Levis. I was gonna say if that's Reed, that's smash. Casey, I mean, I guess the question is, like, how willing are you to bet against this team? Like, I look at it, I think, for me, if you're not giving me a first for Reed, at least, we're not having a conversation. Same thing with Levis. So, like, right now, for this to pay off, I think, start 11, you're only getting 125 first. Like, while it's 104 on the sim, when you look at this team, do you think there's a range of outcomes where it makes the playoffs? Like, if that team fucks around and makes the playoffs, let's say, right? Now it's at 107 at best. Maybe they win a game in the playoffs. What if that's the one? If you make this and that's the 110, I don't want this trade. There's no way you should be making that trade if there's a range of outcomes where they make the playoffs and possibly win a game. So I guess it kind of really depends on how much you are wanting to bet against this team for that 104 and then an early second and obviously the second and third there. So I'm also looking at your team. How do you view your team? I mean, do you think you're rebuilding? Like, if you're rebuilding, I kind of can see it. I think I need something different, a little bit more. I get why you're looking to make this trade. If you're telling me that there's for sure no chance this team makes the playoffs, I might be more willing to make it. But right now, I just feel like while it could be a 104, if that's a 108 or a 110 pick, you're going to probably hate this trade in a year. All right. Would you send away Bijan for Olave and Brooks in a half PPR? I don't think I would, honestly. I don't think so. I like the tear down, right? But and I think by next season, Brooks probably going to be healthy, and this could be a solid trade. Olave's, if it was a receiver higher than Olave, like if this is Garrett Wilson, I'd probably make that type of a trade. But with the offense, I don't really know how confidently I can project his value to keep increasing in Dynasty. I think if anything, he might have a little bit of a fall. And then this trade really is hinged on, like, Brooks better fucking be a top, 12 type running back finisher in the 25 season. I don't necessarily love getting off of Bijan right now for that. Because I also think the way I view it with Bijan, if I'm not truly rebuilding, like, if Bijan goes out there and is getting 80% of the work and is looking like an absolute stud, would anyone be surprised? And at that point, you're probably able to get a better return than Olave and Brooks. So that's probably why I would say no. Okay, would you take Baker for Deshaun straight up in a 12-team superflex with 6-point passing touchdown for tight ends, or for 6-point passing touchdown? Mahomes and Rodgers are my other quarterbacks. I also have Cooper to stack with Deshaun. Would you take Baker for Deshaun straight up? Man, that's a tough one. You know how tough this is too as a Browns fan? You're asking me this damn question. Like, we had Baker. We thought we had Baker. He sucked. Then when we move on, we get Deshaun. Now Baker has a great year. Deshaun Watson sucks. My fandom's getting in the way of this damn question. I think right now Baker has I think realistically, like, he's a floor quarterback still in fantasy football. And I think his perceived value has gotten much better, taking a huge rise from where it was last year and obviously 2 years ago. Deshaun Watson, I think right now, is at the all-time low in Dynasty price, and it feels like his market's never going to recover. So I don't mind trading Baker for Deshaun, but I don't know if I'm doing that straight up, if I'm being honest. It's probably what it is going to, like, their market values are probably similar. But I don't know that I would do this straight up, to be completely honest. I'm kind of curious what you guys think. Maybe I'm just jaded too. Andrew, I could be just the worst person to ask about this. I feel so cooked on Deshaun Watson. I want to believe he's going to be better this year, but he has looked so fucking mid at best right now. All right, so it's kind of tough. Not many people have submitted their keepers for this year. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that second pick, I feel like that second round, like what that could become, probably means a lot in this format. So like I don't want to dodge your question, but I also feel like I don't really know what that looks like, to be fair. So I apologize. If you tell me like certainly some more of the players that might be in the range, I'd be happy to answer it. But I don't want to just answer your question to act like I'm answering it. All right, per my team, you asked about further depth. Okay, I have Keaton Mitchell, Algier, Jim McMillan, Penix. Love to see that. Penix, Theo, Tolbert, De'Ami Brown, Wicks, and Downs. Okay, so I do think that Penix, while isn't depth for this season, is like a really high valued piece in Dynasty. So I like that. But I just look. This is the way I kind of think about it, Finn. Let me go back to your question here. Let me get back to this. All right. So like, yeah, here it is. All right. So you look at this team. Okay. Very solid. Obviously, like Jefferson, Achane, Richardson, all have a lead upside. Pittman, I think, still realistically kind of does too. Jacobs and Diggs weekly could end up being great, even with Diggs' new situation. I think Freiermuth might end up having with Russ like some positive touchdown regression. He might look better than people think. Solid tight end room there, right? But then like I just think about the rest of your team for this season. Any one of those guys gets hurt, like Achane, like if anything happens to these guys, man, starting Wicks or a Downs is not optimal in start 10. And while Penix I think is going to be fantastic for this team, like I feel like your team needs a lot of depth. So I don't know if you're able to find ways to tear down. I don't really want to tear down off of Jefferson. Man, I think that's probably realistically what you'd have to do to get some depth. So I would probably go into this year with the mindset of, unless you want to try to actively tear down to acquire some depth, I'd probably go in with the mindset of I'm going to try to compete this year, keep your first. If it doesn't go your way, if some of these guys get hurt, like if everything isn't hitting, what's probably going to have to happen for you to get in the playoffs and be a strong contender, pick up some nice players on waivers when they become available, have most of these guys stay healthy. If things are breaking your way, I think then I might be able to confidently possibly trade away my first and lean into contending. But what I'd probably like to do is with this team, try to see if you can contend. If you end up being on the outside looking in, like you're realistically not going to end up making the playoffs, I think that would be the perfect time, somewhere mid-season, 6 to 10, somewhere in that range. You got to move a guy like Diggs, like if you can, because Diggs' dynasty value is going to start plummeting, especially going into the offseason next year, depending on where he's going to be at. He's getting older. Jacobs as a running back that realistically you'd probably be able to sell for a pretty penny in the season, but he's getting to be on the older side in dynasty. So I think at that point you try to, Aaron Jones if you can, Hollywood, try to sell some of those guys at that point, get some draft capital, and kind of get yourself ready to be, retooled and rebuilt for the 25 season. I think that's the way I would approach that. That's my thoughts on it, Finn. So I hope that helps you. All right, 12-team two-keeper. How do you feel about sending A-Rich and DK for Caleb and Devontae Adams? I don't like it. I don't like it at all, to tell you the truth, Coach 60. I want A-Rich over Caleb, and I want DK over Adams. So stay kaput. Actually, you know what's interesting? Let me see what KTC has to say about this. I want A-Rich over Caleb, but I think the conversation is extremely close. And here you go. KTC has him. A-Rich is at quarterback 7. Caleb's at quarterback 8 in separate tiers. I think actually, and then when I think about this, I think more often than not, I see A-Rich going ahead of Caleb. Caleb certainly is. They're going close in dynasty startups, but I think I definitely want the upside shot of A-Rich. And DK versus Adams for me isn't really all that close. I think DK in this new offensive situation could end up being electric, so I'll stay there. Trade the 107 for Jaden Reed and a 25 second. Whew. Is it? Like, have you not had your draft yet? Is this the 2024 107? If it's the 107 in 2024, I'm not doing this, I don't think. The 107 is tough, though. So I had the 108, and that's basically going to become, more often than not, Rome goes at the 106. And then the 107, you'll get probably now either, Bowers if he's there, and then either McCarthy or May, who right now their dynasty value seems to be just trending just ever so slightly down because they may not start the year. I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into that, but I'm not probably letting you get a quarterback in Superflex that is going to have the draft capital of a McCarthy or a May at that 107 for just Jaden Reed in a future second round pick, personally. So I think I would stay with I think I'd stay with the 107 if that's what you have. If you're talking about like, you're projecting a mid 25 next year, I'd be more about that. Let's see. Okay, I'm closing. Okay, this is an interesting one. I'm closing down on a three-way trade. Anytime I can get a menage a trois, I'm typically interested. Let's see what this is. Where I send away a projected early 25 first, Stevenson and Zach Evans. Zach Evans with the crying. And a 26 third. I get back Rashad White, Rashee Rice, Downs, and a 25 mid-second. Yay or nay? I say nay. Early 25 first, most valuable piece in the deal, I think, for me. Even well ahead of Rashee Rice. I just think about it this way. So I would be like Stevenson and Rashad White. I lean, like kind of think about it again as fractions we talk about. So Rashad White and Stevenson, they don't cancel each other out, but you'd probably be Rashad White. I would need that Stevenson in a third maybe. Like we talked about that already on the show. That could be realistic there. But I just think about an early 25 first. Let's say it's a 103, 104 or earlier. I'm not loving only getting Rashee Rice currently or Downs in this mid-second. I think in most formats where it's like shallow start, it'll say start 10, start 9. The earlier players, those type of elite players that are going to be viewed are a lot harder to acquire. Kind of go back to, I think it was Quick Review's trade question of I'm having a hard time getting into those top 6, 7 receivers in Dynasty for a lot of different players that he had that were actually really good. So I just think about that early 25 first. It's going to accumulate value. There's some really special talents in this class. Tet McMillan. I like a lot of the 25 early receivers, Luther Burden, that could be in that first mix. So the hopium of what they're going to be, the fact that they're so young, there's so much time spent on like focusing on the rookies. I'm not doing this. I think I'd stay with your early first and 25 projected. I don't know if that's yours or someone else's, but like even if it's someone else's, I love to hold on to that Joker card as long as I can. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, I currently have. Oh no, I got to this one already. Just re-asked the question. Okay, 10-team, 1 quarterback: Josh Allen, Drake May, CMC, Rashad, Ramondre, Warren, Benson. Tyreek, Puka, Pickens, Diggs, J-Mo, Wicks. Tight end is Kincaid and Kmet. Need to get younger, and I have 425 first. Who do I move? Well, you have 425 first. Okay, 10-team, 1 quarterback. So, like, CMC is a prize possession here. Rashad White's pretty highly valued. Tyreek, Puka, I think you have a pretty solid team. Are you saying that you don't think you can compete this year, Zach? I feel like this team might contend, honestly, even in a 10-team. Like Josh Allen should be a hammer. CMC should be a hammer as long as he's healthy. Tyreek hammer. Like I'm looking at some of these older players that are contending that could be monsters. Puka, I think you could be very well in the mix. So I think I might be holding this team right now, seeing if I can contend. And then if that's the case, maybe I can move some of these 25 first in season to go buy players outright to make the rest of my team stronger. And then if that's not the case, then I think you could probably try to tear this down. The one thing about 1 quarterback, though, I don't play in it, but I've actually helped a lot of people with their teams, and I've seen a lot of the trades that go down. In 1 quarterback, the picks, like I lean so much heavier the players as opposed to picks in 1 quarterback, where a lot of times in Superflex, it'll be the other way around for me, where I'd prefer to have just the, the hopium you can sell somebody on what a pick is worth. So, like, I don't really want to trade just CMC for future picks. So I think a lot of times what I'd like to do to move off of a CMC or a Tyreek is tier down if I'm going to get picks and make sure I'm staying in like secure ranges for certain players. But Zach, let me know what you think here on that. Damn, we got questions coming in out the ash. All right, I'm gonna try to get to as many as possible, but we'll see how quickly I can rip these off here. Little off topic, but one of my favorite sleepers this year is Claypool. He's in a great situation to prove he can work out again like he did before. I mean, there is no risk, but I'm gonna tell you the truth. There's no reward, I don't think, personally. I mean, you got to shoot your shot on somebody, but I feel like the Claypool experience is dead. personally. Y'all let us know though. Maybe I'm off. Maybe I'm too close to it. Yeah, no problem, Peyton. Happy to answer it. All right, we got a 10-team start 10 quarterback. Love, Goff. Is this super flex, by the way, DZ? I think so. With you having 3 quarterbacks, Love, Goff, JJ McCarthy, Pollard, Spears, Marshawn Lloyd, CD, Marv, Metcalf, Addison, Reed. Okay, got a solid ass receiver room. And McBride, a lot of stacks. What do I do at running back? Good question. It's a good question. I'm hoping this is super flex. Now, 10-team markets are a little different than 12, but I think like you have a really good solid base here of your team. I think realistically, you just kind of – I think this is what I'm doing. Your roster construction is really important on a team like this. Basically, in its start 10, you're going to start weekly those 5 receivers there. So I probably want to have maybe a total of 6 or 7 receivers on this team that if I need to, I can start them, whether that's bye weeks, injuries, whatever. After that, though, I'm not probably rostering a lot of wide receivers on a weekly basis or just going to end up clogging my roster, right? So I'm going to probably have 7 receivers on this build, maybe add another 2 to this, 6 if I had to. And then I'm basically just going to start putting into my lineup on my roster, right? Like as many running backs that have a chance for work as possible, even if that means they're currently backups, but there's an injury to the guy in front of them, like Rasheen Ali, if Derrick Henry was to get hurt. There's so many situations like that you can point to that might be viable players, and I'm kind of going to just throw out Pollard and Spears right now, knowing that that's my weak spot in my lineup, but then throughout the year I'm looking to obviously make trades. So if you find a team that is starting to become out of the mix, like I was talking about just earlier with one of those teams that if they're not looking to make the playoffs, now you have to start trying to sell a guy like CMC, Derrick Henry, those type of players. If you can find a buy window later on those players, that's what I'd be looking to do. So make sure you keep a little bit of draft capital tucked away, or some younger players like a McCarthy type that you could trade for one of those studs at running back. And then also continue to monitor the waiver wire every week and just keep putting in bodies. You think about last year, guys like Zamir White, what's his name, Ty Chandler, so many guys later on in the season ended up getting a workload that you didn't really project. So I'm just kind of trying to approach the position at volume at first. I think that's the way I'm approaching that, because what you don't want to do is tear into the core of this team. Like you don't want to trade away Love or Goff or definitely any of these really high-end valued receivers currently to make the running back room better. So I think I'm just kind of going in knowing that's the weak spot of my team, and I'm trying to see if I can get some gems on the wire, and then also at the right time try to trade for one of the older running backs that could end up being hammers this year. Okay, which would you trade away if you had McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. stack? Tight end premium for context. It's a best ball super flex 12 team and start 14 super deep league. I'm talking like 4. Wow. Damn, this is a goated league. So best ball Dynasty, where you have 48-man rosters and you're starting 14. This is crazy deep. I'll just answer the question for you here. So do you have Kyler too? Then if you say you got the stack for both, I'll be truthful. I mean, I would definitely lean McBride over of the 2 to trade away. But if you can tear down both of these players for legitimate assets, like 48-man rosters is crazy. So I'd be willing to probably tear down both if I could get legit packages back. But McBride, I think of the 2, would be the one I'd be preferring to trade. All right. Hey, bro. Burrow or Caleb? I also own Kyron. I got offered Corum and T for Devontae Smith. That would give me the Burrow T stack. It's a good question. I think I still lean Burrow. But here's why I think it's a good question and why it's tough. Burrow, I think, if healthy out of the gates, like we've seen him be elite, so you're kind of mitigating the risk of, is Caleb actually that good? Like what is he going to actually do in production in the NFL level? One of the things I think that's a little bit under talked about though with Burrow is what's going on right now. You have, first of all, the Bengals are their owner. There was actually this crazy list out on X or whatever, talked about the net worth of all the owners, and the owner for the Bengals is the only one that's actually not worth $1 billion. And there's a lot of problems coming for them financially in the salary cap department, basically, that T. Higgins right now. They're probably not going to pay him. That's why all this is going on with him feeling like he's locked up. He wants to get out. They franchised him, and if they end up losing T. Higgins, they already lost Tyler Boyd. They lost Joe Mixon. If Burrow in his rookie season, now granted the offensive line was terrible, but was not actually that good. And if really all he has is Jamar Chase, how good is he going to be as a passing style quarterback for fantasy purposes without the surrounding, supporting cast he used to have of Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon? When he was at his peak, all those guys were playing really well. So like how great is he going to be able to be with just like a Chase roster? We'll see what obviously happens with guys like Jermaine Burton and stuff, but like, is he going to be able to kind of overcome that and still be a top 5 type fantasy finisher? And then on the flip side, you have Caleb Williams, where if he ends up like panning out, you see they already brought in Keenan Allen. They have DJ Moore. They have Rome Odunze. They're going to be able to surround him very similar to like Burrow was in his rookie contract, with tons of talent and receiving weapons around him. So the upside play with Caleb is definitely there, considering for the next 3 to 4 years, the talent around him, the playmakers that could be around him, just fucking stupid. So I think Burrow, for the security of what Burrow is going to be, is what, like, we've seen him be really good, is what makes me currently still say Burrow. But I think it's a great discussion, because if Caleb ends up being like, if we saw Caleb be legit with all that talent around him, I don't think anyone would be shocked. And then this time next year, I think Caleb could end up passing Burrow. So I think Burrow's the safer play and Caleb is the upside play. All right, 12 team super flex, tiered PPR, wide receiver 1, running back 1.5, tight end 2. Okay. There's so many that are the opposite, where it's a half point for the running back, 1 for the receiver, and then 1.5 for the tight end. I like this, especially because of where the values have gone in Dynasty. I gave Penix. No, you traded away Penix. All right, let me just read it. Rodgers, Burton, and an early 25 first to get Kyler to stack with Marv. Whew. That is that's pricey, though. I still think I get it. I still think I like it. Man, Penix. I'm just thinking Penix in an early first. In a start 10, I think I still probably lean Kyler, but you definitely paid to go get him. Watson is your quarterback 3. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that. I get it for the stack. I think you may have a little bit overpaid, but like nobody really. That's why just trading away Penix right now is tough for me, because nobody's going to appropriately value him as you're not going to be able to trade Penix today for what you're going to when he's the starter, and that's really why I feel like he's someone that I want to hold. But Kyler's, definitely a top 12 quarterback in Superflex, so I definitely get that one there. I think what people are talking about here, at least the one that I know of on our website, South Harmon, if you sign up for the Warp Tool, built into the Warp Tool, you can use your league simulator. So similar, it gives you Warp on your league. You can also see it'll break down and it'll simulate for you what it thinks of all the teams in your league based on the real schedule you guys have set in Sleeper. Whew. All right, let me try to rapid fire through some of these, man. All right. In a 10-man Superflex PPR league with 0.25 tight end premium, should I hold McBride and Bowers or move one of them for another asset? I believe I am set to contend this year. I only a 0.25 tight end premium, and especially in a 10-man, I think I'd be trying to move one of those if the market would let you move them for a skill player. Like if I could pivot that one of those guys even into a DK Metcalf type, I think it's just there's not enough of a tight end premium for these guys both to probably be weekly starters in this format, especially 10 teams. So I think especially as a contender, I'd be trying to move one of them. Not that they're not both great talents and couldn't end up being really nice tight ends. I don't think it matters enough in this format personally. All right. In a start 9, I have Kyler, Caleb Williams, Bijan, Brees, Marvin Harrison, Waddle, Odunze, sheesh, and a ton of youth depth like Brian Thomas Jr., JSN, and Will Levis, for example. Thoughts on if I should trade for some older players? It's a good question. If you're trying to contend this year, Liam, one of the things I think that, like especially for myself, I know 3 years ago especially, in the offseason, we talk about all these young players and wanting to get younger and reset the age on our teams. You can kind of, I think, misconstrue dynasty value and these young players for contending players and what that's going to mean in production. Like realistically, you saw what JSN was last year for teams in production. So you have him already on your bench. Brian Thomas Jr., what's his role going to be? Is it going to take him a while to carve out a role in that offense? Rome Odunze, we already know, as talented as he is, kind of fighting a similar situation. I think the ranges of outcomes are that Rome could end up being the best receiver on his team by the end of the year. But realistically, like when does that happen? Is it going to happen this year? Is not guaranteed. I think you have, like, Caleb obviously is different because he's going to be playing the entire time. We project him at least to be somewhat meaningful. I don't know if he's going to be elite, but Kyler, him, Bijan, Brees, Marv, Waddle. Like, you have a lot of players, I think, on this team to make it a really solid contender. So I think one of the things that you definitely have to do, and I think the question is geared to this and the right thought process, you kind of want to blend some of these young teams that are built really well with some older players, kind of mix them in for production. So I think realistically, if you want to contend this year, you're going to need to probably try to add some crusty veterans to this team. Because, like, your wide receiver 3 already, realistically, between Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., and JSN, like, I like all three of them, but I can't sit here and confidently tell you that they're going to be, good contributors, especially like the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. I think you need to add some older crustier players. And the good part is right now, if you do it, in the next couple weeks before like that redraft mindset totally kicks in, you can probably get some of them, some of those types cheap. Dak and CD are the best wide receiver stack in football. CD's the GOAT. Fizzle's really got me to come around. By the way, Fizz, I got Dak and CD in the Scott Fishbowl, so if Dallas sucks this year and they implode, I'm sorry. It was my fault. Any live startups at the shithouse during the expo? I haven't made a decision for sure on that. I do want to do 2 startups before the year. I know we're going to be doing one with the BDG guys, Nick and Andrew and everybody. I don't know when we're going to be doing that. And I'm going to do one with South Harmon too, so it's a possibility. I'll say it's a possibility. I don't know for sure yet, but there's a chance. There's a chance. All right. By the way, if I'm sorry if I don't end up getting to your question. I'm already at an hour and 15. I'll probably go about an hour and 30, longer than I wanted to, but I want to try to get as many of your questions answered as possible, and then I'm gonna bounce out of here. Sure, you guys are sick of hearing me fucking yap now. The only reason you may not be sick of hearing me yap is because I'm answering y'all's questions. All right, so what do I do with Jameson Williams and Dotson? Try to sell both, just one. I should be contending. So, I mean, everybody has differing opinions and views on this, I think. Like, the Lions used a premium pick on J-Mo, but there's also, and his circumstances are wildly different, coming off of the really serious knee injury, then the gambling problems. I just don't really like to typically invest in someone that's done as little on the field as he has going into year 3. Right or wrong, I kind of group him in the face planter category where I'm just kind of not really looking to invest in you. And if I end up missing because he's an outlier, I know that could end up being in the range of outcomes. So I don't typically like to do that. Dotson's a hard one to really say. I liked him a lot coming out of school. I actually like both these players a lot coming out of school, but Jahan Dotson, man, that offense actually, people may not realize this, they threw the ball more than anyone in the NFL last year, the Commanders did. Later in the year, if you remember with Sam Howell, they were chucking the ball everywhere. And like the amount of time both Dotson was on the field and just not doing anything, like that really concerns me from last year. They have a whole new situation. Jaden Daniels coming over, I think, a really talented player. So Dotson is iffy for me. I think I still would prefer to sell. The problem is, though, when you say that, let's say you want to sell both. Realistically, what are you selling these guys for? That's the problem, is most people aren't really heavily in the market of going to buy J-Mo or going to buy Dotson without trying to give you fucking junk or nothing back. So, I mean, actionably, though, like if it was me, I'd probably be trying to get the best future draft pick liquidity that I could. If you could sneak a second out of either one of them, I think I'd be surprised. if it's just a single third, I can understand if you just wanted to hold. But I'm kind of out on these two guys personally. Okay, Zach, tips for 16-team Dynasty startup or Dynasty Superflex PPR tight end premiums half point startup draft. Have you started the draft yet, Zach? If you haven't, or well, either way, you got to let me know this, because I will admit I haven't done one because I'm not that big of a sicko. Like you are one of the sick degenerates. I love to see this. I played in 14 teams, all right? And in 14 teams, one of the things that's tough about it, the scarcity at quarterback already becomes such a problem. So in 14 team, let's just say everybody in theory has to have 3 quarterbacks on their team, or optimally wants to have 3 starters. That's 42 in a 14-team league. So scarcity becomes a big thing. You'll see in a 14-team draft, the quarterbacks basically like dominate the first round. And you'll see guys that normally don't go in the first round. Jordan Love's like an early second in 14-team. So now in 16-team, right? You're at in 16-team. If everybody had 2, that's the entire starting. That's all the starters in the NFL. So the quarterbacks get pushed so fucking far up the board, and they're so the dynasty market value for them, and obviously what it means to your team in a superflex league is it makes it really hard to team build if you don't have the quarterbacks, right? Like basically if you have an earlier pick and you end up getting a high end one, as long as you don't like completely not get a second quarterback, you're probably in the same type of boat as everybody else is. But in 16 team, I haven't played in it. I just have seen some of the drafts. I've seen some of the trades. Like elite quarterbacks, top 12 quarterbacks they're completely unpurchasable. So it's like a lot ends up being what pick you are. Did you end up drafting the right one or the wrong one? Like let's say, just think about a few years ago, if you would have drafted Trey Lance as what you think is going to be your quarterback one option. I mean, fuck, you're probably wanting to orphan that team. So it's I guess the tips I would say is that try to make sure you at least leave the draft with one of the top 15, 12 for sure if possible. And I think I'd probably, while there's some upside plays you could shoot for, I'd probably be wanting to make sure I got a safe quarterback, like someone that you have seen production from, and outside of like an injury we just can't predict, that you have a staple in your lineup at QB. That I think is the way I would view that. All right, let's get to 14 team. Start 9, Kyler, Kirk, Connor, Sharps, CD, Chase, Pittman, Watson, Musgrave. How are you trying to improve running back or tight end? Okay, so in 14 team, start 9. I think running back, yeah, I mean, definitely Sharps is tough. I think I'm not trying to do it, though, at the expense of your 3 really solid receivers, CD, Chase, and Pittman. 14 team, though, is a lot about depth. So if I was able to get a serious tear down from Chase or CD where it's like close to market, I think this would be one of the formats where I'd be willing to do it. I'm probably okay even in a 14-team league like this, in only starting 9, rolling out Musgrave, kind of having my tight end position not be that important. But I'm okay being light at running back, but you definitely 14-team depth is huge, man. So I think I'd be trying to see if I can move, maybe see what second-round picks can buy you. A lot of times in 14 teams, the second-round picks are devalued even further because there's 2 more picks in the first round. But I think I'm trying to see if I can send a second or find some kind of package to go buy running backs that might have crusty production, like James Conner types, Alvin Kamara's, for single picks. And then also, like, you may have to tear down one of CD or Chase. As long as you don't go down too far in the receiver ranks, like, you can probably get back some serious depth, which is important in a 14 team. All right, 2 more questions, and then I'm gonna bounce out of. Let's see. All right, I traded Nico Ayuk in 2 seconds for JJ and Chubb in 1 quarterback start 9. Good trade, or did I give up too much? I think it's like Chubb for me. Realistically, I love Chubb. I think he's injury was fucking hard to watch, right? But I'm not. There's a part of me as a fan that wants to see him like have a resurgence and be what he was before this injury. But he's already dealt with injuries in his time. He's getting older. And it's a pretty gruesome knee injury. So I'm kind of in this format, he may end up being not really worth much. It's only start 9, so I think like a Nico and an Ayuk package up to go get JJ is probably fine. And the 2 seconds for Chubb, while you're probably overpaid a little bit, like I'm probably perfectly okay with this trade. The one thing to keep in mind though is that Nico and Ayuk, as far as production goes, they could end up being guys that are in their range or not far off from Justin Jefferson. So that's probably the problem in the 2-for-1. But if I just think about it in a 1 quarterback format, like Jefferson is coming off the board. He might even come off first. Like realistically, and I also would put the running backs up a lot higher in a 1 quarterback league. But I think to acquire a guy like Justin Jefferson is in a 1 quarterback league super hard to do. So I don't think you did anything egregious, especially not sending away a future first. I think it's a good trade. I don't think it's like you stole him, but I feel like I've seen people pay way more for Justin Jefferson in this format. All right. For new players, do you recommend staying away from trading during the startup draft? Happen. Yeah, I would say yes, unfortunately. Like I think it's a lot more fun when everybody's trading. So there's there's a part of me that says, nah, don't stay away from trading. But I think like one of the things that I've kind of talked about a lot, and one of the things I think that's hard to like put concepts on or evaluate is just the conversions of the different picks. And essentially I think of dynasty assets in 3 different forms: of startup picks, rookie picks, and then players. And everybody knows players, but they ultimately go up and down so much in value. And then you have rookie picks, people that haven't necessarily done a rookie draft. You don't really know what to think about as far as valuing those. And then if you're trading different picks in a startup, it just convolutes I think it takes a little while to understand what those are, or at least kind of what you're sending away and what they could be. So I don't want to say necessarily completely staying away from it, but I would say if you're going to make trades in the startup, make them don't start getting super involved with a lot of moving pieces, right? Try to make them simple deals where it's 1 startup pick and another startup pick and maybe a rookie pick swap. But like I wouldn't get really carried away as far as sending away a lot of your future picks for a team in the startup. Like you have no idea, and I've seen it so many times. Team is leveraging all their future away, thinking their team's going to be really good. 1, 2, 3 injuries happen. The team sucks. They don't have their first. It's going to be early first, and then they're pissed. They don't want to like deal with this team anymore. So I would not be leveraging away your future picks. And if I was making trades in your first time startup, I'd be pretty cautious about making big trades. Like try to make them simple, 1 or 2 pieces in the deal. Don't start making 3 to 5 pieces in these trades, especially if you're newer to it. I think it'll end up. You can end up. I'll just put it this way: you can end up out of the startup with not necessarily the best team and be fine. You can make other trades and moves later to make that better. But one of the things that you can do, I've seen done, is you can totally fuck up your team in a startup, and that's a lot harder to, in the inverse, kind of correct. So I'd be cautious for sure making trades here. All right, so I know tight ends don't really matter, but if you already have a really strong team and you have Laporta and Pitts, do you hold because you are just looking at points? So it's a 12-team start, 1.5 tight end premium, Stroud, Burrow, Young, and Penix. Okay. Bijan, Barkley, Cans, Chase, A.J. Brown, Neighbors. Goodness, London. This team is stupid stacked. Waddle, Higgins, Laporta, Pitts. Well, so the question with this team, right, was I know tight ends don't really matter, but if you already have a really strong team and you have Laporta and Pitts, do you hold because you're just looking for points? I think there's a couple different ways I think about this. 1.5 tight end premium, technically it doesn't really matter relative to what the skill players score. So in theory, I do probably want to sell one of these 2. But I kind of think about it from this perspective, Cole. You got to start 12. And even with you starting 12, okay, you're going to start Stroud and Burrow every week, Bijan and Barkley every week. You're probably, if one of those guys go down, hopefully you've backfilled with some decent running back options. But then, even then, so now in a start 12, you can start 7 receivers or a combination of those receivers and skill players in your flexes. Chase, A.J. Brown, London, Waddle, that's 4 auto starts, right? And then T. Higgins is probably a start in this league. That's wide receiver 5. I mean, dude, your team's already so good that it's also like, what are you going to trade cross-positionally a Laporta and a Pitts for to actually make your lineup better or your depth better? Like, I'd probably optimally like to have maybe 8 receivers at most, but you're already at 3, 4, 5, 6. You're already at 5 really, really good ones. So, I'm sorry, 6. So, like, I just don't know. It might be. So it's a weird one. I think still realistically, it's better to try to see if you can trade a Laporta for a really nice skill player in this format, because it is tight end premium, and build that into your roster, because when you do play them, they're probably going to be someone that you can get like more consistent points from, and then just go ahead and play Pitts as your tight end 1, or vice versa if you think you can sell Pitts for cross positionally. But at the same time, like if you're telling me to start 12 that you have to start a top 5 tight option, a top 5 type option at the tight end position as your last flex, it's not that bad. So I think it realistically, I would probably still say yes, I would try to, but it probably depends on what market does in your league. Like what can you actually acquire back, Cole, would be the way I put it. So if you give me some like ideas or some things that have been offered to you, I will answer that. Have Rice, Leggett, and Polk on the bench, but maybe go for a running back. I think that would be the one thing too later on in the year that I was going to say is if you can find a way to get the, like, if you can add a Derrick Henry or a CMC or a Jacobs type, even someone that like I really don't want to carry the risk of for a lot of the offseason and early on in the year. But if you're able to trade a really nice young tight end for one of those players because someone's trying to reset on their team, I think that would be probably the best way to fill this on your roster. All right, I got one last question here from Jay, and then I'm going to start doing these at least every other week, possibly weekly. We got to talk to Nick and see, but well, I'll do them as long as you want them and you like them. So what do I do? Rostering Hurts, Saquon, and Devontae. Do I try and move off of Saquon? Okay, start 9. No running back depth. I have Gibbs as running back 1. I mean, no. Like, I don't think so in a start 9, I think it's actually optimal to have what you have, where you got Gibbs and Barkley. Boom. Cool. You got your hero RB or your 2 hero RBs. And then I don't want to have a lot of high-end running backs on this team anyway, realistically. If injuries happen or these guys don't play well, try to fill in whatever I have in depth and try to go, get someone cheap later. And as far as rostering Hurts, Saquon, and Devontae, that's definitely one of the offenses, the Eagles, that I'm not worried about having too many of the same options in the same offense. Honestly, give me all the Eagles except for Dallas Goedert. Give me Hurts, give me Saquon, give me AJ Brown, give me Devontae Smith. I'm happy. I don't care. I'm rolling them out every single week. Those 4. Let me know, big girls, what you thought of this. If you have any other questions, put them down in the comments, and I can try to get back to you just on YouTube later on. But let me know what you thought of this. I'm going to be back here yapping at you. Got a baby on the way, possibly next week, so probably every other week to start off with, and maybe weekly moving forward as we get into the season. So appreciate y'all. Love you. Nothing you can do about it. I'm out of here. Peace.